Alright guys, Path of Exile 3.12 Heist League is here. Today is the day, and I know what you're here for. You're here to find a powerful starter build that can carry you all the way through the game. I'm gonna give it to you, and the cool part about it is I already have full league start build guides for all of these builds available on my channel. So I'm gonna go over each of the builds here. I'm gonna give them each some ratings in the categories of how easy they are to gear, how good they are at bossing, how good their clear is, and how easy the build is to play. So you'll get an idea of which one that you should choose. Now remember guys, if you enjoy my content, make sure to like this video so that more people can see it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this. And last but not least, I am going to be streaming the new league as soon as it releases over on Twitch, twitch.tv/bigducks. Come throw me a follow, come hang out with me. You can leave the stream on in the background. You can hear me talk about all the new heist stuff that we're going to be getting. Should be a pretty good time, so make sure you come and check me out over there around when the league releases. And without further ado, let's get into the ratings of the 5 builds that I have for you in Path of Exile patch 3.12 Heist League. Alright guys, so this is Creeping Frost. This is actually going to be my starter. It's what I'm beginning the league with, and that's because it's super easy to gear. So this build has a 5 out of 5 when it comes in ease of gearing. You can just slap on some random rares. It doesn't matter what the stats are, life, resistances, maybe some energy shield if you can manage it. You just got to grab a wand with either some cold damage over time multiplier, a +1 to cold spells, a shield with some block stuff on it, and you're good. You can do everything in the game. You don't need anything else. The helmet for this build is like 1 to 2 chaos most of the time early on in the league. The snake pit ring you don't even really need, but it's typically not too expensive. And everything else is super cheap. You don't need any kind of crazy gear to play this build to get all the way through the game. Tier 16 maps, most of the Conquerors, Cirrus, all that kind of good stuff. And the cool thing is that if you do invest a little bit more into the build, it actually becomes good enough to do all of the content of the game if you wanted to. Now, probably the weakest thing about this build is the bossing. However, with the updates that I've made to this build for 3.12, you are going to have an easier time with doing bosses. I've made some updates to being able to use Elemental Equilibrium with Stormbrand to give you a little bit better single target damage, and I've updated the trees and some other things a little bit just so that you can have a little bit better time. Now, this build does get a 3 for bossing. It would be a little bit lower, but honestly, I think the reason why this is such a good bossing character is because it slows down the bosses and prevents them from hitting you as quickly. So especially going into the new league where we're probably going to have some new bosses in Heist, probably be well off to have a build that can slow those down so you can learn the new fights. Now, clear is actually pretty good on this build. It's one of the better clear builds that I've got for you. Now, this build gets a 4 out of clear just because it can zoom around the map and absolutely AoE clear entire packs. You just cast once, it clears pretty much the entire screen, and the little Creeping Frost debuff moves around the map to find enemies to kill. So very good for clear, pretty decent for bossing, very easy to gear. And last but not least, this gets a 5 out of 5 when it comes to ease of playing it. This build is super simple. When you get everything running, you literally just right click and go, and that's all that you do. You don't have to worry about anything else. You just right click and you win. You can use another click for a secondary damage ability, and that's the most that you gotta do. So 5 out of 5 when it comes to ease of play. So if you like this build and you want to actually choose this one, there's going to be a link up in the top right corner of the screen right now to the full build guide. Go check it out. So as I said, this is going to be my league starter. I highly recommend it. I think that it's going to be one of the better ones that you can do, but let's move on to the next one. Alright guys, so I know a lot of you are excited about this one. This is Archmage Ball Lightning Ascendant, and this build does have some weaknesses, but most of those have to do with playing it and gearing it. Now when it comes to actually gearing this character, I gave it a 3 out of 5, and only because, judging by how popular this build has been with my community, I think that the items might be a little bit tougher to get than they may have been otherwise. Other than that, it just requires random rares, so it's not too bad, so I gave it a 3, right around the middle of the road, because some of the uniques might end up being a little bit expensive. Now, if you've watched any of my videos about this build, you absolutely know that this is a monster boss killer. 5 out of 5 easily. It melts every single boss in the game, even with the changes. I did the math, and it's like maybe a 10% damage loss when you account for the changes in AoE, and it might not even be that much. I really don't know, because I'm not that great at ball lightning math, but what can I do? So clear on this build still absolutely gets a 5 out of 5. It's insanely impressive. You can AoE clear all the way up to, in the video that you'll see if you go check the build guide, we were doing tier 18 maps with all kinds of buffs and juices on them, and we were absolutely just mowing it down. The clear in this build is insane. Ease of play, I'm gonna be giving this a 2 just because I know a lot of people have been concerned about spamming that mana flask. That's the only difficult part about this build, but I'm giving it a 2 just because you should be aware that you really gotta spam that mana flask. I suggest that you put it on spacebar. It'll make your life quite a bit easier. Impressively good. Like, I was very surprised when we figured out this build and we put it together. Probably one of the strongest builds I've played in some time. So if you want to see how this build works, go check up in the top right corner right now. There is a build guide link up there for the full information about this build if you want to play it. But besides that, let's move on to the next build. Alright guys, so this is the Poison Blade Vortex Assassin. This build gets an easy 5 out of 5 when it comes to gearing. I geared my entire character that I did every single boss in the game with for a 50C. All it requires is a corrupted 6-link chest piece. The helmet might be a little expensive in the very, very early parts of the league, but you don't need it. You can just use any other helmet with some life and some resist on it. It'll be perfectly fine. When it comes to bossing, this one is really, really good. The only reason that it didn't get a 5 out of 5 is because there's a little bit of ramp up, and bosses that go immune all the time, you're gonna have a little bit harder time doing. But as soon as it does get that ramp up of that poison damage, it absolutely melts bosses. Now with clear, it also is going to get a 4 out of 5 simply because this build moves so quickly through maps, and all that you have to do is just right click once and then you just zoom through the enemies. You can also put on Plague Bearer, it helps you out a little bit there. Now when it comes to ease of playing this build, it does get a 4 as well, and the only reason it doesn't get a 5 is because Plague Bearer can be kind of annoying to remember to put up. You have to make sure that you're keeping Plague Bearer up while you're going around, but besides that, it's very easy to play. This is one of the stronger ones. I think this is very, very, very good, and you should really consider this one. A lot of people are thinking that this is going to be the go-to league starter for this league. In my opinion, it's one of the best, and it has been for quite some time. So if you like the look of this build, make sure that you check out the link up in the top right now for the full build guide. But besides that, let's take a look at the next build. Alright, so this is the Impale Cyclone champion. Now, there's a ton of you out there, and I know you're going to want to play a melee build, and you're not going to have anything else. It's melee or nothing. That's what this is here for you guys. So this build is pretty easy to gear. It's not the easiest just because it does require a specific unique to be able to play it as well as you want to. Terminus Est is the sword I'm talking about. It's normally only 1 chaos, but it is still a required unique. And this build does require halfway decent rares to have enough defensives to be able to do what you need to do. But besides that, very, very easy to gear. That's why I gave it a 4 out of 5. Now when it comes to bossing, this is one of the better bossing builds in the game, and not because of its damage, but simply because of how easy it is to move and dodge enemy attacks, especially on bosses, while you're DPSing them. So bossing on this build is very, very easy and very, very clean. You really will enjoy the bossing on this build. It's not the biggest AoE anymore, so I can't give this a 5 out of 5 when it comes to clear, but you still just hold right click and you zoom around the map and you just go. So, I mean, it still gets a 4. It moves around, it still has pretty decent AoE, still has pretty good clear. Ease of play, you hold right click, you spin, and you win. There's nothing else to say about it. 5 out of 5. And remember, if you do want the full build guide for this, as always, up in the top right corner right now. Go check it out. Now let's move on to the final build. Now this build is the tried and true. Everybody knows what this build is, and this is Essence Drain Contagion Trickster. Now this build is pretty easy to gear. Now what I want to say here is that you don't need any of the insane gear to get through most of the game. However, I couldn't give it a 5 out of 5 when it comes to easy to gearing because there is a couple of very expensive pieces that you need to really push this into like Uber Elder territory of killing, like a Cirrus 8. You do need to spend a little bit of money, but majority of the game, like tier 16 maps and all of that, no problem on very, very little gear. Now this is probably the weakest bossing character that I'm going to suggest here. It does get a 2, and the reason that is that the boss damage can be kind of annoying. Now this build is actually pretty safe on bosses. It has good defenses. It has actually good recovery mechanics even on bosses. Essence Drain heals you quite a bit. Problem is that the damage on bosses is really just not there. Once you do get a 6-link Blight as well as a 6-link Essence Drain and you get the Spellbow and you get all that good stuff, the bossing damage is actually not that bad. Until then, it's a little rough, but this is the one that you want to choose for clearing. This is the best clear build that I have in the entirety of all of my options. If you're looking for something that you can just zoom to maps, clear all the way through to red maps, get enough currency to make your second character, and then move on, this is the one to do. This has the best clear, without a doubt. Press 2 buttons and the entire map gets destroyed. Not even kidding. And last but not least, ease of play is going to get a 4 for me. This build is relatively easy. It's just 2 buttons that you really have to press, but it is 2 buttons, so I can't give it a 5. You hit Contagion, you hit Essence Drain, and then the entire screen gets cleared. So it gets a 4. And as always, the link to the full build guide is up in the top right corner right now. Alright guys, so there they are. I put a ton of work into these build guides. There's path of buildings for each of them. They're all in the description. Everything is all there for you. Go check out the videos. Go look to see what you want to play. And I hope to see you guys over in the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/BigDucks. Come join me for the actual release of Heist. I'm going to be streaming a lot in the next week, so make sure you throw me a follow over on my Twitch channel so that you can come and hang out with me and the boys. If you have any questions about any of my builds and you need help and it's not in the path of building notes and it's not anywhere else, it's not in the description or any of that, you should join my Discord. Discord. It's linked down below in the description, as well as my Twitch stream and all the other stuff. It's all down there. I'm gonna check that out. We're actually growing faster than I could ever imagine. We're at like 2,000 people in the Discord now. It's getting kind of insane. It seems like every video I say is just another giant number of people in the Discord, but I mean, it is what it is. But remember, if you enjoy my content, like this video so that more people can see it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this, and stay safe out there in Ray class. And I'll see you guys in 3.12 Heist League.